Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel today. And I'm giving you my about 3 brand new movie reviews, um which I've seen. The most recent one being Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and over about a month or something ago, well over a month ago, I watched Vikings Valhalla and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I rewatched those two recently because they're both on Netflix. So these are both Netflix series, and in this video I'm giving you a review for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, there's now no "the" in the title, which is just kind of dumb. And essentially what this movie does is that it takes a token from 2018's Halloween and refuting all the other installment sequels and just saying this here is the official actual sequel to the 1974 classic horror movie. And in my view, this is the film that needs to be studied for all the wrong reasons. And frankly, this movie is bad, but it's not a cringe bad. It's more of, okay, what went wrong and how do we learn from this film? First off, if you just wanted to go from a purely, I know I'm in a film like this, I know I'm getting into. I'm going into this really insane splatter, more aesthetic splatter-based score type of movie towards itself, and on that kind of standards, it can be enjoyed. But if you actually care about plot, character, motive, narrative, narrative thrust, and everything else, undertones, themes, anything that makes a competent movie and more, it foundationally does not work. In this movie, it doesn't work because it places a lot of modern isms into it, in which I'm trying to be on my channel here. I'm trying to say things like woke or ultra, like Gen Z, millennial text stuff like that. But this movie definitely has a lot of younger people vibes to it, with this younger cast going into oh, this place here in Texas that's abandoned, we can start anew from bottom up and make this place into our own. And I'm like, why the hell would you want that? And my second plot towards this movie is, where the hell was this film? Where the hell was this town in the original film? Because the first film is very self-isolated, it's very selected, it feels very, very obsolete and off the broken path. Like, the house in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre feels like, okay, here's what really works about this film. It's raw and uncompromising for its time, and no one saw anything like it before, and it played out like a snuff film. It played out perfectly worked off of the ideas of, you found this, and this is something that's going to shock you to your core because no one's ever seen this before, and it's grisly, and it's changing the genre, and it's doing it in such a revolutionary way. That's what makes this film an immortal classic within the horror genre. Even the film genre, which this film came out 40 plus years ago, 1974. That makes it almost 50. It's 48 years old. At the least. I'm sure my math is wrong, if someone wants to correct me on that. But what makes this movie really, this movie work for all its own rights is purely because this movie here just doesn't work. It places a lot of visual aesthetics with this really glamorized spectacle perspective of colorization and fantastical score and really obnoxious young acting that doesn't really add anything to itself, and it really doesn't really have that much substance to it. And granted, the original doesn't either, but I knew it would have made it work in the first place because it was so authentic and raw for the time. And it sparked and kicked off a genre within itself. This movie feels like it's following trends. With a lot of its aesthetics and its tone and its soundtrack is really trash. There's very little essence to the score here, and any type of song scenes or anything like that. And this movie does not really come alive in itself. There's one genuinely fun violent scene that is, well, shown if you've seen the trailers for this movie, because it's like a really big action scene that takes place in a bus where Leatherface does go berserk. frankly. And that's like that's the only moment where I felt like, yes, the movie had it. It had this weird sense of pop aesthetic visualization, but it knew how to play that splatter and that gore and that VFX and almost like weird mix of it. Those two mixed genres come together, and it actually did somewhat work there. It was like a great little moment there. The cast is boring. They don't really add much. Any ties to the original 74 version feels like an afterthought rather than an actual narrative flow within this movie. Like, the original Survivor is running this movie in a much more passive, reactive nature rather than her being a real proactive main character, like an actual catalyst for what happened. Like, what an underused statement of it. And when she does into the film, I'm not going to say much, but wow, is it unearned? And they toss it aside so swiftly. It's kind of stunning of how they underhandedly use like the actual meaningful tie-ins to the original and how to use it, and it just feels so lazy and hand waved off. It's just like, oh yes, this is meant to be a sequel, but they forgot how to really incorporate the actual main survivor from the movie, from this film, into this film, which is like a 30 years difference or something. And I'm like, why wasn't her character much more well focused or anything else? What the hell is with this movie? It's just really, really unfocused, and it feels like it's trying to place this today a very, very modern type of crisp HD colorization to it that really makes it feel like it just pops, but it doesn't earn it. It doesn't know what it's going for. It's just kind of going for this, as I said, it's going for this modern HD colorization pop that makes certain comic movies actually appeal really well, i.e. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but in this film it feels much more shallow and trying to pave towards a younger set of viewers instead of naturally trying to flow an old and new genre mixed together well. Like, have we not learned anything from the fucking Star Wars sequels? It's like, if you're going to do this in a very natural way, because those films didn't do it as well, the original cast never had a moment where they were all truly together, or the new cast when they were all truly together, in a certain particular moment. There was nothing like that. There's no literal sense of a passing down of the torch. It's just boring, uninspired, underdeveloped characters who don't really have the right to be in this franchise. And that goes for both Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Star Wars sequels. God damn, I've grown to fucking hate the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I'm sorry, I can go to a 3-hour rant about those movies. But regardless, the same thing about this movie. It just feels like it's just kind of demeaning. The score is super forgettable. The soundtrack sucks. The actors don't do much to this. The narratively, there isn't much there to this movie that really... I'm glad, in a weird way, this movie is trying to do something different. But it does it in such a weird way where it doesn't really feel like a Texas Chainsaw movie at all. Like, I hate giving Michael Bay credit, but his two Michael Bay produced Texas Chainsaw movies that were directed by Marcus Nispel, I believe. Those movies, I have them somewhere. I have them. One second. At least these two films, like this one here, which is, I believe this is the one with Jessica Biel. Actually not half bad, but nothing special is about. This one here is not good at all, but at least these two tonally felt like Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies that set in the same world. Like, if you told me that these two were trying to be like a soft prequel, sequel type of vibe to them, I can actually see that happening, because they at least tonally match what the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies were meant to be. This gross, odd, grimy type of snuff film that excuse me for burping, that you were shocked to discover. this movie is just another lazy HD over colorization of a movie that really makes you forget what a franchise was meant to be in the first place. Again, another fucking tie-in to the Star Wars sequel trilogy that doesn't understand how to naturally, fluidly have that passing of the torch approach to aspects that those films have. Like the two Michael Bay movies here have much more in common with the original film than this one does, and that's a shocking fact that I just came to realize about. So, crap, I shut my mouth. So, yeah, that's my rap about this movie. It stinks. It's demeaning, it's lazy, it tries to make you forget what the franchise was, aside from just giving in some rather colorful HD colorization to it that really makes it some of that HD colorization really modernized. And it's not. It comes across a lot more shallow and demeaning and forgetting what the genre once was rather than it should be. And the meaning from that is kind of insulting because it doesn't understand what the genre is about. It doesn't know what the franchise is about. There's no identity. This movie does have identity, but it feels like it's trying to appease to a younger audience. Also, there's a really insulting characterization I just remembered about one of the characters being a survivor of a high school shooting, and I'm like, oh, that's an obvious planned payoff. Like, that's not well earned or grown or anything. It's lazy, it's dumb, it's uninspired, it's just crap. So yeah, like the only reason why I could recommend this movie at all is if you want to see some really boring characters bite the dust as they deserve, and to see some half-decent, half-baked, one fairly good action scene in the bus where it's gory as all hell. Where there's one moment where I actually felt like I was gonna throw up. Just when you're watching, and I'm like, okay, that's quite effective. Aside from that, this movie sucks. I give it a 2.5 out of 10. What the hell? Who directed this fucking movie? David Blue Garcia. I got nothing to say about this movie. I'm done. Damn.